I will admit I did not get up at 4:30 Eastern Time to watch the U.S. Women's National Team Olympic opener against Sweden, 4:30 Eastern Time. I was on the East Coast. I was actually on a plane. I saw the score, I boarded, and I tweeted out, well, it's tough to have this record of excellence all the time. You can forgive this team if they had a bad day. Great time to have a bad day. First game of the tournament. Get back on the horse. You're still the favorite. You're the top dog here. Landed in Los Angeles. Then I watched the game, and well, it may have changed my tune a little bit. I do believe this team is the most talented at the Olympics and can kick it into a higher gear. But there were some alarm bells on the field. There were a lot of turnovers. There were the U.S. women losing 50-50 balls to the Swedes, just behind the play time and time again. And in the air, Sweden thrashed the U.S. women. It was stunning in a bad way if you're American. But they still have an interesting start. By the way, I will add, call me a traditionalist, and I know they've been doing this for a long time, but starting events at the Olympics 3-4 days before the opening ceremonies just bugs me to no end. I understand it's logistically impossible to fit this in. It's tough on the athletes to get them to show up and play after the opening ceremonies. But this thing has proliferated so much. But I understand. I don't want to dwell on that. But we will talk about this team because now, as I give you the Women's Olympic Tournament preview and a review after their loss to Sweden, it worked out well. I wanted to do this earlier, but after that game, I think our video will be a little more interesting. And on that note, this is the Soccer OG. Women's National Team Olympic video? I was going to say tribute. The video! Subscribe. Go on now. Hit that button. We have a good conversation coming on up. Subscribe. Also check out the Soccer OG podcast. I am joined this week by Nigel Rio-Coker, a wonderful footballer. He is an English black man, and he will talk about the racism in the game after what we saw in the Euro final, and is pretty eye-opening here as to what he might say. Coming up on Sunday, we'll have a Soccer OG podcast recapping the Gold Cup quarterfinals. I'll be joined by Heath Pierce. It's going to be comprehensive where all pods are available. Check it out. But let's get into the women's tournament. It's intriguing in many ways because what this team has done, was it 44 games unbeaten? This is the most impressive women's team of all time. I'm not here to step on the toes of the 1999 Women's World Cup team. What they did was amazing. But this team reached the World Cup final, lost, got back, won again, blew out the field in that last World Cup in 2019, and there was nobody on their back wheel. This was separation from the world where you're worrying about, can the world keep pace? And I was having my doubts, and maybe a little less doubts after what happened. And look, if you lose by 3-0, that is, I've never seen the U.S. take one like that. And maybe we could have seen it coming in the send-off series because although they weren't giving up goals, they weren't putting teams away like Portugal or Nigeria. It was a little trickier for them. It was a little harder. Maybe teams have caught up to them. And despite this loss, which was troubling, I don't know. Before I watched the game, I said they're still the favorites. After watching the game, maybe not so much. And there's some cracks in the program that you have to see, and I'll get into that. So, first of all, this Olympic tournament, I know I diminished the men's tournament a little bit, and the women's tournament as well. You have Zambia in there, which is ranked 115th. You have a 12-team tournament, which is weird, and you're going to narrow it down to 8 in the quarterfinals, which is good for the U.S. after taking a loss. There is the second-ranked team in the world, Germany. The third-ranked team in the world, France, are not there. And the empty stadiums. I mean, this Tokyo is bizarre. There's these images of downtown Tokyo, and there's no one on the streets. There's games that are empty for the soccer, yet the J-League games have fans. It's just bizarre. Look, I know if Tokyo could do it again, they'd say, we don't want the Olympics, because they would have never expected to have to deal with this. But I can't even imagine what their logistics are on a day-to-day, it's not really feeling like an Olympic Games, but that's not these athletes' faults whatsoever, and they're going to give a good tournament. The women's tournament's always better than the men's tournament. I don't care what you say. Because you have the best women players there from the world playing, you can't say that about the men. Not even close. Not even close. I would not want to recognize the Olympics as much. Maybe we're moving away from that because it's not FIFA recognized. There's so many flaws to it. It's a weird format. But we do enjoy the women's game. And the Olympics are big on the women's side because it keeps pace with the World Cup. And again, all the stars are there. So we look a little bit closer I will preface everything by saying the Sweden game is good for women's soccer. Maybe not for us Americans. And the reason, you know why they love this women's team in America so much? Is they beat the snot out of everyone. They destroy teams as they did in the last World Cup, and the American audience can't get enough of that. I'm a bit of a soccer purist. I like good competition. And in the big picture, to keep the Europeans and the South Americans and Canada engaged and Australia, they got to get a shot at these teams. They're trying. Maybe they've closed the gap here, but this is a really good development. Get the U.S. angry as well, as they did 5 years ago when they lost to Sweden and didn't get a medal after being so dominant. They responded by winning the World Cup. In addition to the Swedes, who I think are ranked 5th in the world, you have a combined Great Britain team, which is really the English team, which was a very good squad, semi-finalist in the last World Cup. You have the Netherlands, are the reigning Euro champions. They played the United States in the final. They have one of the 2 or 3 best players in the world, and Vivian Miedema, Lika Martens. So they look like they could win the gold. Certainly if Sweden could do that, what could the Dutch end up doing? Canada's going to be strong. Australia's going to be strong. Australia's in the U.S.'s group. That group, it's called Group G. It's 3 groups, Groups E, F, and G. Sweden, USA, Australia, New Zealand. They'll beat New Zealand, but maybe the United States have complications against Australia, which isn't the end of the world for them because they could probably still get to the quarterfinals. Group E, Japan, Canada, Great Britain, Chile. Group F, China, Brazil, Zambia, and the Netherlands. Some interesting things here. And, Pia Sundhage is in charge of Brazil. And I remember Marta at the end of the last World Cup asked the young Brazilian players to take over the mantle. Well, they're not. And maybe the older players in Brazil are still the best, but you've got to make way. And this is part of the U.S. problems. There is no doubt the best young players in the world play here in the U.S., and you got to give them their opportunity. But we have Carly Lloyd coming off the bench. She's 39. Becky Sauerbrun's got almost 200 caps. She's 36. Megan Rapinoe, obviously not playing as much as 36. Everyone, Tobin Heath, 33. That's not old. And Kristen Press, 33. And Alex Morgan, 32. They still have plenty to go. But this is where you want to see some young talent get a shot. And the U.S., pale in comparison to Brazil, Formiga is going to her 7th World Cup. She's 43. 7th World Cup. Doesn't that strike anyone in a strange way? And I brought it up on Twitter, and people say, well, she's the best. I go, I don't care. There should be a limit. 4 World Cups. 7? She's 43. She may be the best defender they have. And people say, well, this is the best chance for Brazil. But they ain't going to win it. And there is something in the women's game that is obviously preventing this next generation to seamlessly come through. Maybe it's the way the U.S. women get paid and the system they have there, and there's people in the books, and they continue to get that. The United States women's team did something, they changed the game. The biggest achievement in the women's game. That's what I said. That said, a demise which might be coming here could be avoided if you recycle players, if you bring in new ideas. I've seen it so many times with other countries on the men's side. The older generation sticks around too long, they sputter. This is a sport where you have to refresh. And you have to concede and give the next generation the reins. And the older generation can't really hang around too much because then they can't express themselves the way they should. I think everyone should be there for the U.S. No one's played 7 World Cups. 4, okay. But you've got You've got to gauge this because that transition should be happening soon. And if the U.S. come back and win a gold medal, maybe it doesn't happen. But they still have to watch that. The Brazilian situation is so far over. I don't know. But this is going to be an interesting tournament to a degree. Again, I would wait for the World Cup to pass any major judgment on the state of the game. But this is a bridge to that World Cup. The USA will play New Zealand July 24th, then July 27th. I was expecting them to win the group, so I can't really tell you who they are going to play based on them finishing second or possibly third. But this tournament's gotten a lot better because of this result. But a lot of questions. You know, Sweden took the lead and they had 2 or 3 chances before scoring. They dominated this game. This was one-way traffic for a lot. Gold medal game, bronze medal game will be on August the 5th. We'll see if the U.S. are there. So you can panic a little bit, not too much, but we'll know a lot more when they play Australia in a couple of games. The Soccer OG, subscribe, tell a friend, share the video, do it. We cover everything.